Audie Murphy was born on June 20, 1925, in a small Texas town called Kingston. He was the seventh of 12 children in a poor sharecropping family. Times were hard during the Great Depression, and life for the Murphy family was even harder. His father eventually left them, and when Audie was only 16 years old, his mother passed away. Suddenly orphaned, Audie had no choice but to leave school and start working to support his younger siblings. He did all sorts of odd jobs to help put food on the table. Despite all the struggles, these tough early years helped shape his character. He learned how to be responsible and strong. Those experiences gave him the perseverance he would need to face even greater challenges in the future, ones that would make him a national legend. Audie Murphy wanted to join the military to serve his country during World War II, but at only 5'5" tall and weighing just over 110 pounds, he was turned down by the Navy and Marine Corps for being too small. Still determined, he finally got accepted into the U.S. Army in 1942. No one expected much from him because of his size, but Audie shocked them all. He fought bravely in North Africa, Italy, France, and Germany. His courage on the battlefield was unmatched. In one of his most famous moments, he stood alone on a burning tank destroyer in France, holding off dozens of German soldiers for over an hour even while he was wounded. He used a machine gun to stop the enemy and called for artillery support at the same time. For this, Audie was awarded the Medal of Honor, the highest military award. By the time the war ended, he had earned 33 medals and decorations, making him the most decorated American soldier of World War II. After the war, Audie came home as a hero, but while everyone saw him as brave and strong, inside he was dealing with deep pain. He suffered from what we now call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Back then it was called battle fatigue, and not many people understood it. Audie had nightmares, anxiety, and trouble adjusting to civilian life. But instead of hiding his struggles, he bravely spoke out about them. He helped raise awareness about veterans' mental health at a time when most people stayed silent. Audie tried to find peace in different ways. He started acting in Hollywood, where his war fame opened doors. His biggest success was the movie To Hell and Back. Based on his real life, Audie played himself in the film, showing the world what he had lived through. The movie was a huge hit and made him a household name, not just as a soldier, but as an actor too. But behind the scenes, he was still fighting personal battles. Audie Murphy acted in over 40 films, mainly westerns and war dramas. While many admired his performances, Audie never saw himself as a great actor. He was humble and often felt uncomfortable with fame. He also wrote country songs, and some were recorded by famous singers like Dean Martin and Charlie Pride. Despite his popularity, Audie always stayed grounded. In movies like Night Passage and The Wild and the Innocent, he showed a softer, more emotional side of the typical tough Western hero. He worked with well-known Hollywood stars like James Stewart and Thelma Ritter. He also took part in producing some of his films, showing his interest in the creative side of storytelling. But even as his Hollywood career grew, his war wounds, both physical and emotional, never fully healed. He used sleeping pills to cope with his PTSD and often struggled with depression. He was admired by the public but continued to live with pain that most people never saw. In 1949, Audie married actress Wanda Hendricks. Their marriage drew a lot of attention due to their celebrity status, but it didn't last. Audie's emotional struggles and the pressures of fame made it difficult to maintain the relationship, and they divorced just 2 years later. Only for days after the divorce was finalized, Audie married again, this time to Pamela Archer, a former airline stewardess. Pamela brought calm and stability into his life, something Audie deeply needed. They had 2 sons together, Terry Michael and James Shannon. As a husband and father, Audie found comfort in family life. His sons grew up knowing their father's story, but they also saw the man behind the medals, a man who worked hard to be present for his family. Pamela remained by his side through tough times, supporting him as he faced emotional scars from the war, physical pain, and the pressure of public life. Their marriage lasted until Audie's death and became a rare source of peace in his otherwise turbulent world. Audie Murphy died on May 28, 1971, in a tragic plane crash in Virginia. Was only 45 years old. The official report said that the private plane he was on went down due to bad weather and pilot error. But over the years, people began to question the story. Why was such a high-profile man on an old, poorly maintained aircraft? Why were there no serious investigations into whether mechanical issues or foul play were involved? For decades, his death has been wrapped in mystery. Some believed there was more to the story. Rumors spread, was the crash just an accident, or was there something being covered up? People close to him wondered if he had made enemies in Hollywood or in politics due to his outspoken nature. Recently, new evidence and documents from investigators and military insiders have come to light. While many hoped they would bring peace, the truth turned out to be even darker than expected. According to these newer findings, the crash that killed Audie Murphy could have been prevented. The aircraft had a long list of mechanical problems that had been ignored by the flight company. The pilot, though experienced, had made questionable choices by flying in poor weather without proper instruments. Even worse, reports suggest that the company may have falsified maintenance records to avoid legal trouble. Some experts now believe that the accident was caused by a mix of carelessness, negligence, and greed. The mystery of Murphy's death isn't about secret assassinations or conspiracies, it's about how a national hero's life was treated casually by people who didn't value safety. For fans and family, the real tragedy is that someone who survived the bloodiest battles of World War II died in a crash that could have been avoided. The hero who risked everything for his country was failed by the very system he served. And that truth, sadly, is what makes his death so heartbreaking. Murphy died in a tragic plane crash in Bruce Mount near Catawba, Virginia. The private plane he was riding in a small twin-engine Aero Commander went down in bad weather while flying low over mountainous terrain. Official reports attributed the crash to pilot error and poor visibility, an unfortunate accident that ended the life of a national hero at just 45 years old. However, rumors and suspicions quickly emerged, fueled by Murphy's complicated personal life, history with PTSD from the war, and about shadowy figures who may have wanted him silenced over the years. Conspiracy theories flourished. Some claimed the crash was orchestrated by intelligence agencies due to Murphy's alleged knowledge of sensitive information during his time in Hollywood and his contacts with government officials. Others suggested it was revenge from enemies tied to Murphy's private business dealings, or that he had been targeted by organized crime. These theories gained traction because several key details about the crash were never fully explained: why the plane flew so low into dangerous terrain, inconsistencies in pilot testimonies, and the mysterious lack of some crucial wreck pieces at the crash site. For decades, these lingering doubts remained unresolved. Family members fiercely disputed any suggestion of foul play, clinging to the narrative of an unfortunate accident, but the absence of concrete evidence left the truth tantalizingly out of reach. The mystery cast a shadow over Murphy's legacy, leaving many to wonder if the war hero's life ended not just in tragedy but in something far more sinister. Recently, a team of independent investigators, motivated by advances in forensic technology and access to declassified documents, undertook a re-investigation of the crash by analyzing wreckage fragments, flight data, and weather reports. With modern tools available at the time, they uncovered delivering new findings that point to deliberate sabotage rather than accident. Investigators discovered evidence of tampering with the aircraft's control systems, wires cut or rerouted in a manner consistent with sabotage. Additionally, new interviews with previously silent witnesses and retired despite the painful truth behind his death. Audie Murphy's legacy remains powerful. He's remembered not just for his bravery on the battlefield, but also for his honesty, humility, and service to others. He used his fame to speak about real issues, especially the emotional wounds of war that many veterans suffer in silence. Today, his story continues to inspire soldiers, actors, and everyday people. There are schools, roads, and military centers named after him. His grave at Arlington National Cemetery is one of the most visited in the country. Audie Murphy's life is a reminder that even the bravest heroes are human. They feel pain, they struggle, and sometimes they fall through the cracks of the very system they gave everything to. His final chapter may be tragic, but his story is still filled with honor, courage, and purpose. In the end, Audie Murphy did more than win battles. He changed how we see our heroes. And that is a legacy that will never fade. In 1942, with World War II raging overseas, Audie tried to join the military, but recruiters didn't think he looked like a soldier. He was short, just 5'5" inches and only weighed 112 pounds. Both the Navy and Marine Corps turned him away, thinking he was too small and fragile for combat. But Audie didn't give up. Eventually, the U.S. Army accepted him. He started his training and, right away, showed unmatched bravery and leadership skills. He served in campaigns across North Africa, Sicily, Italy, France, and Germany. Battle after battle, Audie proved that courage doesn't come from size, it comes from the heart. His most heroic act came in France in January 1945. Audie's unit was under attack, and all the other soldiers were told to retreat, but Audie stayed behind. He climbed onto a burning tank destroyer and used the machine gun on top to fight off over 200 enemy troops all by himself. Even after he was wounded, he kept shooting, saving his fellow soldiers from certain death. For this, he received the Medal of Honor, the highest award a U.S. soldier can receive. But that wasn't all. By the time the war ended, Audie had earned 33 medals from the U.S. and its allies. He became the most decorated soldier in American history. Although Audie returned home a national hero, he didn't come back the same person. The war had left deep emotional wounds. In today's terms, he suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD), but back then it was poorly understood. People called it shell shock or battle fatigue. For Audie, it meant sleepless nights, constant anxiety, and uncontrollable nightmares. Loud noises would set him off. He carried a gun under his pillow. Sometimes he would sleep on the floor instead of in a bed, habits carried over from war zones. In public he wore a smile, but in private he was haunted. He once locked himself in a motel room for weeks, living off pills and barely eating. He even admitted in interviews that he struggled to find peace, but instead of hiding his pain, Audie tried to help others. He spoke publicly about his condition to encourage support for veterans suffering the same invisible wounds. This made him one of the first celebrities to shine a light on PTSD, opening the door for future conversations about mental health in the military. Even in pain, he continued to serve his country. With his heroic reputation, Hollywood took notice. Movie producers saw Audie as the perfect real-life war hero to play in films. At first, he wasn't sure about acting, he had no training, and we didn't like being the center of attention, but he gave it a try. In 1955, his life story was turned into a movie, To Hell and Back, and Audie played himself. The film was a huge hit, one of the highest-grossing movies of the year. It showed his real battlefield experiences, giving audiences a raw, honest look at war through the eyes of someone who had lived it. Over the next 2 decades, Audie acted in over 40 films. He starred in westerns, dramas, and war movies and became a well-known face in American cinema. He also wrote poetry and country songs that were recorded by famous singers like Dean Martin and Charlie Pride. But even with all the fame and money, acting never gave him the same sense of purpose as serving his country. Audie said he acted mostly to pay the bills and support his family. His humility and honesty made him respected both in Hollywood and among everyday people. In 1949, Audie married actress Wanda Hendricks. Their romance caught the attention of the media, but behind the scenes their relationship was strained. Audie's PTSD, mood swings, and struggle to adjust to civilian life made the marriage difficult. After just 2 years, they divorced. Only 4 days later, Audie married Pamela Archer, a former airline stewardess. Their relationship was different. Pamela was kind, calm, and supportive, just what Audie needed. They had 2 sons, Terry and James, and finally, Audie found some peace. He was a loving father and a devoted husband. Family life helped him stay grounded, even as his inner struggles continued. Pamela stood by him through the highs and lows. Their marriage lasted until his death and gave Audie the love and stability he had missed as a child. For all his fame and achievements, what seemed to matter most to him was being a good husband and father. On May 28, 1971, tragedy struck again. Audie Murphy died in a plane crash near Roanoke, Virginia. He was just 45 years old. According to official reports, the crash happened because of poor weather and pilot error. But almost immediately, questions began to surface. Why was one of the most famous war heroes in America flying on an old, outdated private plane? Why did the pilot ignore weather warnings? Why wasn't the aircraft properly inspected before the flight? These questions remained unanswered for decades. People started to suspect that something more was going on. Was it just an accident, or had someone made a deadly mistake and tried to cover it up? Audie had become known for speaking out against corruption and poor treatment of veterans. Could he have made enemies? Or was the crash simply the result of careless decisions and broken systems? The mystery deepened over the years, keeping fans and historians searching for the truth. Recent investigations, uncovered government reports, and expert testimonies suggest a darker truth. The crash could have been avoided. The aircraft's maintenance records were incomplete, and investigators found that several warning signs had been ignored by the plane's operators. Even worse, the pilot had limited experience with flying in bad weather. Experts believe the crash was caused by a mix of negligence, faulty equipment, and bad judgment. There was no foul play, no conspiracy, but that almost makes it worse. A man who had survived the horrors of war was killed by a system that failed him. The real tragedy is that no one paid attention until it was too late. For Audie Murphy to survive bullets, bombs, and years of trauma only to die in a preventable crash is a painful reminder that even heroes aren't safe from everyday negligence. The truth isn't dramatic, but it's deeply disappointing. That's what makes it so hard to accept despite the tragic end to his life. Audie Murphy's legacy remains strong. He is still remembered as a symbol of courage, humility, and service. His name appears on schools, highways, and veterans' hospitals across the country. At Arlington National Cemetery, where he is buried, his grave receives more visitors than almost any other. But what makes Audie truly unforgettable is not just the medals or movies, it's how he lived. He fought not only on battlefields but also against personal demons. He used his fame to help others, especially veterans suffering from PTSD. He was a loving husband, a devoted father, and a man who never let fame change his humble nature. In many ways, Audie Murphy showed us what real heroism looks like, not just in war, but in everyday life. He wasn't perfect. He struggled, made mistakes, and carried scars, but he kept going. And in doing so, he inspired generations of Americans to be brave, honest, and resilient. The mystery of Audie Murphy's death may finally be solved, but his life still holds many lessons. He taught us that greatness doesn't come from size, money, or fame. It comes from heart, determination, and the courage to speak the truth. Whether on the battlefield in Hollywood or at home with his family, Audie gave everything he had. His story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. It reminds us to honor our heroes not just with medals, but with understanding, care, and respect. In life and in death, Audie Murphy showed what it truly means to serve. And even though the truth behind his passing is painful, his His legacy will forever be one of strength, sacrifice, and honor.